Welland Canal. Certainly is magnificent. Far greater than anything I had ever imagined it could be. But I suppose that's to be expected. Growth and progress are two of the most important things that we can do for this country. I don't see any signs with my name on them. Nothing to say that William Hamilton Merritt built this canal. Well, I suppose that's to be expected as well. I didn't really build this one. Mine was farther away than this was, and certainly, as I say, not nearly as large. You probably put about half the locks on my first canal into this one. Excellent, excellent. Just what I had hoped for. Progress, growth, trying to keep pace with the changing needs of transportation in this country. I am indeed pleased. Well, what have we here? The Merritt Trail, bicycle and walking trail. Merritt Trail. Well, they do have something with my name on it. How nice. But why a trail here? Well, of course. This is the second Welland Canal. How interesting. A walking trail along the second Welland Canal. Right by the very spot where the canal climbed the mountain. 6 locks to cover 180 feet of vertical rise. A magnificent achievement. Albeit with smaller locks, but that's only because the ships were smaller. These locks were quite sufficient for the traffic that they had to handle. And a building. Interesting. Piece of industry, that's really what it was all about, apart from transportation. Attracting industry to this area for the hydraulic rights along the side of the canal. George Kiefer certainly knew the value of that. And one of the strongest proponents, one of my biggest supporters all the way along. And indeed the first president of the Welland Canal Company. He certainly knew the value of industry and hydraulic rights. Magnificent limestone, much better than the wooden locks which we started with. Why, look, you can still see the number carved into this lock, as clear as the day it was put in by those Irish stonemasons. Lock number 21. Bicycle and walking trail. Well, I don't have a bicycle, but I do have 2 good legs. Perhaps I'll go for a walk. Oh, now this is interesting. Where are we going? Oh my goodness, right down inside one of the locks. Now this is an opportunity that very few people would have had, to walk down into one of the locks while it was dry. Very interesting, just like when we built it first. Oh yes, there's a lot of local industry around here. Mills of all sorts of descriptions. You know, this sylvan setting could be somewhat deceptive. It certainly belies the activity that was going on here in those days. It's all the industry, the mills, the sound of activity. We were certainly up and doing. The lockmasters' houses on the other side of the canal, ships moving in and out, up and down, day after day. Certainly a magnificent period. Trees. Interesting that they should be growing here now. There's certainly were no trees back then. Not here, at any rate. No, this was one of the sites of the largest developments of industry alongside the canal that we had. Even if there had been trees here, I wouldn't have had time to enjoy them, nor would anyone else who was working here. As long as water flows downhill and it can be harnessed, the inherent power, industry will flock to that attraction. And the canal certainly provided the impetus for large tracts of mills to locate in this area. The greenery is certainly more refreshing. I suppose industry has found another source of power, and I certainly hope so. I would hate to think that the canal had been abandoned. And I think I'll walk over here. Industrial waste. You know, whenever you have industry, you're bound to have waste. And if the best use that can be put to this canal is to transport that waste from one place to another, then the canal is still serving the public. Oh, Dick's Creek. Yes, this is where we ran the first canal. What have we here? Interesting. Well, I'm glad they were able to preserve at least one of the locks from that first canal. Yeah, we had to build them out of wood. Knew they wouldn't last, but people were so sure that the whole project was impossible that we were under a very great restraint of time. We had to get as much of it finished as quickly as we possibly could, and therefore we used wood because it was readily available. Well, as I say, I'm glad there's at least one lock that they can look at, enjoy. Well, the old homestead. Oak Hill, that's what we called it then. A lot more oak trees around here then than there are now. Yes, Catherine and I spent many a happy family hour here. Not enough, unfortunately. I was always too busy with the canal. But still, our children were born and raised here. And indeed, my other children, the Canals, were born and raised here as well. Not in this house, but on this spot. The old home burned down in 1858, and we constructed a new one here, which was completed in 1860. Oh, I see there's a statue over there. Oh, yes. Not a bad likeness. And how appropriately placed as well. So near to the old homestead and overlooking the routes of the first and second canals. What we have here now is Niagara College. But of course, like most things, it wasn't always this way. Once upon a time, before Niagara College came here, this place was known as Welland Vale and was a large center for manufacturing. And of course, even before that, manufacturing decided to locate here because of the water power of the canal and indeed of the 12-mile creek. We built a lock here in the second canal in 1845. It seems to be gone now, but the area still remains as a bustling center of activity. That second canal is 27 locks long, and where possible, as in the first canal, we used water power that already existed, 12-mile creek. Not too far from here, Louis Cicluna decided to set up his shipbuilding yards. Again, an industry that located solely because of the Welland Canal's presence. Port Dalhousie, very bustling, great town. It has really lived up to all the potential I had hoped for. That was part of the plan of the Welland Canal, was to enable every little village, town, and hamlet along the shores of the lakes, the interior lakes, to give them the potential of becoming an international port of call. And as I say, Port Dalhousie lived up to it. From nothing, it grew until there were banks and shops and stores and really a hustle-bustle of activity. This very hotel, which is a restaurant now, which is Murphy's, was Murphy's then, but of course then it was a chandler's shop, outfitting ships and all over the world that came here. Well, here we have the lockup, supposedly Canada's smallest jail. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of use for it and a lot of customers, but we just jammed them in. And it's right down here by the lake. Perhaps a nice view today, but not so pleasant in those days, I suppose. Lakeside Park. So called because it's a park right beside the lake. Lake Ontario, that is. Oh, it was once a center of activity, recreational activity. People came from miles around to have a good time on a weekend or just a Sunday afternoon, taking the streetcars in from St. Catharines and Thorold. Then, of course, there was a great ferry system, having regular runs between Lakeside Park and Toronto. And a great time was indeed had by all. But then the ferry system slowly diminished. Pollution increased in the lakes, and attendance at the park seemed to drop until it seemed as if there would be no hope. But where there is life, there is hope. And today there are, once again, hundreds of people here, perhaps not as many amusements, but you can still get a ride on the merry-go-round for 5 cents, which is not a bad bargain. And these are the piers and the lighthouses that we built in 1851 as a man-made improvement to the natural harbor which already existed here. That was really the story of the whole canal, as a man-made improvement to what nature had already provided. It provided a safe harbor for a multitude of ships and vessels that found a safe haven here, preparatory to moving up the canal and into the upper Great Lakes. Well, this is Lock 1 of the second canal. This is where the ships made the first step in the long ladder from here to Lake Erie, attempting to overcome the 326-foot difference in level between the two lakes. You can see the hinges where the gates for the original lock were. And it's interesting to note that there has been some work in preserving some of the things of the past and restoring some of the things to the condition in which they were then, so that we can see the way things were, not just the way they are today. And here we have Dalhousie House. Now, this was originally the Muir Brothers Dry Docks, but it's now a place of community resource where people can meet and gather, discuss. See, even centuries after the original canal has outlived its original function, still provides a focus for service to the community, not only through meeting places such as this, but through parklands, picnic areas, recreational activities such as the Henley Regatta. I am pleased. And here we are, the end of the Merritt Trail, right beside this magnificent old oak tree. It's probably 110, 120 years old. Think of all the things that have happened since this tree was first planted. Overlooking the canal, high above the first lock of the second canal, when the schooners were being pulled through by horses. I guess this tree is sort of like the canal itself, standing here through all those ages, changing, growing, and yet here still today, serving us in our various needs. It's going to serve me right now because I think I could use a little bit of shade and perhaps just a bit of relaxation before I start out again.